My name is Anna Murphy, and I'm going to be the occupational therapist today. We work with people with disabilities or people recovering from accidents, do their daily activities, things that are important to them, things that they need to do, like showering, dressing themselves, feeding themselves, just things like that, whatever is important to them. So, when working with a patient with C5 tetraplegia, when teaching them how to eat cereal, I would start out giving them a universal cuff since they don't have the hand strength and finger strength to properly hold a utensil. The cuff would do that for them. I would show them how to use the cuff, how to properly hold the utensil, and keep their arm positioned so they don't spill cereal all over themselves. I would start out with hand over hand, show them exactly how to do it, and at a FIM score of 4, they would only need assistance with every occasional bite, not every bite. So I would just make sure that they know how to use it on their own and that they're able to independently feed themselves without spilling cereal on themselves. So when testing for oral apraxia, I first would ask the client to lick his lips, and then if he doesn't, I would put some peanut butter on his mouth to see if there is an automatic response. Okay, so when working with a patient with C6 tetraplegia, I would use a TheraBand. This is the closest thing I have to that here at home, but I think they're pretty similar. I would start out with horizontal adduction, which would work on the biceps, and then horizontal abduction, which would work on the triceps. I would then go to shoulder flexion, which would work on their anterior deltoid, coracobrachialis, pectoralis major, and biceps. Then you can turn around and do elbow extension, which works on the triceps, latissimus dorsi, teres major, and posterior deltoid. I would then go to elbow flexion, like this, which would be the biceps, brachialis, and brachioradialis. After that, we could also do this and have them put this under their wheel of their wheelchair, and they could do shoulder flexion with this, which would increase their trunk muscles. These exercises, the intact muscles would have to have at least an MMT grade of 4 to perform these against gravity with assistance, but with the TheraBands, you can change the distance to alter the resistance required to perform these exercises. And also, I held them like this just so they wouldn't slip, but with the C6 and a TheraBand, they would just loop their hand through it. So for the amputee with a body-powered prosthesis, I also would use my TheraBand. Ideally, I would use an exercise machine. I don't have one of those, so this is the best way for me to demonstrate this. I would start out with horizontal abduction, which would strengthen the posterior deltoid, infraspinatus, and teres minor. I could also do scapular protraction to increase the pectoralis major, pectoralis minor, and serratus anterior. And like I said, an exercise machine would be better for this, but I'm going to move this up here. Ideally, this wouldn't be so high, but they could do a cross-body motion to work on core strength. And with something like this, or even a workout machine, they could use the hook on the prosthesis to hold on to it, so that would be helpful. And then lastly, they could get down like this to get maximum resistance and do a lateral pull down to help strengthen their latissimus dorsi and rhomboids. And all of these would be done in an against gravity position. Okay, so we're going to do passive range of motion. We're going to start with the shoulder first. We're going to do shoulder abduction and shoulder adduction, shoulder flexion, shoulder extension, and then shoulder internal rotation, shoulder external rotation, and horizontal adduction and horizontal abduction, And then we're going to move to the elbow and do elbow extension, elbow flexion, move to the forearm, do forearm supination, then forearm pronation. Then for the wrist, there's wrist flexion, wrist extension, wrist ulnar deviation, and wrist radial deviation. And then we're going to do the scapula. So scapular protraction, scapular retraction, and then scapular elevation and scapular depression.